So a syndesmosis injury is a fairly major injury at the ankle joint and commonly misunderstood. In this video, we're going to look at anatomy, causes, signs, and crucially, how they're managed in practice. Let's dive in. Hey guys, Khalid here. Welcome back to Clinical Physio. So to start with, the syndesmosis of the ankle joint, the only place to begin is our 3D anatomy model. So the syndesmosis, also referred to as the distal syndesmosis of the ankle joint. This is a really key set of structures that effectively bind together the tibia and the fibula bone. And they're really, really important for function, particularly in a sporting environment. So the syndesmosis is effectively made up of a set of soft tissue structures. Let's explore them. First of all, we have the anterior inferior tibiofibular ligament. As the name suggests, it's anterior, it's inferior because we also have one at the knee joint, and it joins the tibia to the fibula. The same can be said about the posterior inferior tibiofibular ligament, and of course this is situated at the posterior aspect of the ankle. And then a structure which isn't quite part of the syndesmosis but is really important is the interosseous membrane. This is a really long, thick fascia that connects the tibia and fibula throughout the leg. We also have one in the forearm that connects the radius and the ulna, also called the interosseous membrane. But importantly, the distal aspect of the interosseous membrane is where we have the interosseous ligament. This is effectively seen as a little bit of a bridge between the interosseous membrane and the two tibiofibular ligaments that we looked at a second ago. Now, what is the role of the syndesmosis in practice? Well, we talked about it a second ago that it binds together the tibia and the fibula. Now, this is crucial for weight bearing because without the syndesmosis, we wouldn't be able to weight bear. The reason being is because the binding together of the tibia and fibula allows for this mortise-shaped structure to the ankle joint as a whole between the fibula, the tibia, and the talus, which we have highlighted in yellow here. And therefore, without it, we wouldn't have any stability at the ankle joint. So when we injure the syndesmosis, it is referred to as a relatively high-level injury. It's sometimes referred to as a high ankle sprain because, as you can imagine, it's to do with the ligaments which sit above the ankle joint. And when we have a syndesmosis injury, what effectively can happen is the talus bone becomes externally rotated. It therefore forces the fibula away from the tibia, which stretches and separates those ligaments. And this commonly happens in conjunction with a fracture. We know that Weber B and Weber C fractures commonly involve a disruption of the syndesmosis. So it's really, really important that we keep an eye on these in practice. So let's quickly talk about grading for syndesmosis injuries because they can be graded between grade 1 and grade 4. So a grade 1 injury, the most mild form, is where we have an injury to just the anterior inferior tibiofibular ligament. A grade 2 injury would be where we injure this particular ligament as well as the interosseous ligament, which we spoke about a second ago. A grade 3 injury would be where we injure the anterior inferior tibiofibular ligament, the interosseous ligament, as well as the posterior inferior tibiofibular ligament. And then finally, grade 4 would be the injury of those three ligaments making up the syndesmosis as a whole, as well as the deltoid ligament of the ankle. And this is important because when we have a syndesmosis injury, one of the most common mechanisms of injury is a heavily externally rotated ankle during a particular trauma. So you can imagine that not only will it tear the syndesmotic structures, but a significantly externally rotated ankle would also really stress the medial side of the ankle in a varus position, which of course is where these deltoid ligaments lie. So next, causes. And we mentioned it a second ago, the most common mechanism of injury for a syndesmosis disruption is when we have forced external rotation of the ankle joint, particularly when combined with ankle dorsiflexion as well. when does this happen in practice? Well, the most common occasions that I can think of is when you have football or soccer players who have their foot planted and are then tackled from the medial side, which can force their ankle into that externally rotated position. And we also commonly see it in American football or NFL, where you have someone like the quarterback, for example, who's transferred all of their weight to one leg as they're about to throw the ball. And then again, they get tackled potentially from the lateral side, which is then going to force their ankle into this varus position, which once again will disrupt the syndesmosis and also potentially the deltoid ligament that we looked at a second ago. Okay. So what signs do we need to look out for when we're thinking about diagnosing this injury? Well, first of all, we're going to listen to the mechanism of injury as we've just described to see if it replicates that externally rotated forced ankle position. And what we'll commonly be looking for and listening for is where our patient's pain is centered more towards the anterior inferior tibiofibular ligament that we saw earlier, i.e. superior to the normal level of the ankle joint. And we can differentiate this against something like a lateral ankle ligament sprain, where we're talking about the more mild injuries of the lateral ankle, where the patient will point towards the lateral malleolus or perhaps distal to that. Whereas with these patients, we're thinking about a little bit higher, where the tibia and fibula look to be joined with the syndesmosis. And we'll also listen out for the pain in the same places when we're doing range of movement and when we're palpating around the ankle as a whole. Now, there are also a couple of different tests that we can use too. We can employ something like a squeeze test. This is where we very simply lie the patient down and then place our hands around the mid shaft between the tibia and the fibula and then simply squeeze these bones together. If the test is positive, what will happen is the patient will feel a replication of pain around that superior ankle joint, because by squeezing we effectively force the distal tibia and fibula apart because of the fact that the ligaments are not in place, and that creates their pain. We can also use Kleiger's test. This is where we have the patient in a sitting position and then we place one hand at the knee joint and push down through the tibia and fibula complex, whilst at the same time externally rotating the ankle. And once again, we're looking for that reproduction of pain around the syndesmosis area. If those tests are positive, we might refer the patient on for an X-ray, because a weight-bearing X-ray might be used to see if there is indeed a gap between the tibia and the fibula at the ankle joint on the X-ray, which can also be used to conclusively diagnose the syndesmosis injury. Okay, so what about management? Well, this comes down to the grading systems we looked at earlier. Commonly speaking though, syndesmosis injuries do often take a lot longer than a routine ankle sprain, particularly if we're talking about those higher grades of the syndesmosis injury. So a grade 1 or a grade 2 may well function very well with normal ankle rehab, whereby the patient may well be back to playing sports within 4 to 6 weeks, particularly if the sprain is just a grade 1 to the IATFL as we were looking at earlier. And if you're looking at a more severe injury, perhaps a more severe grade 3 or a grade 4, particularly if combined with a fracture, you may well see these patients being operated on, where they need surgical fixations to therefore bind back the tibia and the fibula. However, some grade 3s, if they're less severe, can be managed with physiotherapy alone without the need for surgery. So what might rehab look like for the patients who don't have surgery and instead are allowed to focus on physiotherapy? Well, for this, we can look at the brilliant work of Morgan, Konopinski and Dunn. These are top-level physios at Liverpool Football Club in the UK, and they published their thoughts and their experiences of working with players with syndesmosis injuries in the Asbetar Sports Medical Journal. If you want a link to this, you can find it in the description below. So if we look at the work of these brilliant physios and look at what they commonly do for a grade 2 injury, we might see that these patients might be in an air cast boot for the first 7 to 10 days to allow that injury to try and heal as best possible. And from there, they can start doing basic range of movement exercises and perhaps some isometric exercises, particularly into plantar flexion. From day 10 onwards, we can see our patients really increase their rehab in terms of TheraBand exercises, perhaps some proprioceptive single leg activity to progress weight bearing, as well as exercises such as heel raises, squats, deadlifts, and finally plyometric exercises and sport-specific activity around the 3-week mark. Remember though, this is working with elite level football players, so you may need to increase your time slightly for your non-elite players. So when this group talk about grade 3 injuries, we're talking about a higher level injury and a much longer time to return to play. They look at about 9 weeks for their players to go back to football following this grade 3 injury. What kind of things do we do? Well, in the first 4 weeks, interestingly, the patients are placed in an air cast boot and they're advised not to move range of movement beyond neutral in terms of dorsiflexion. So clearly a real focus on healing and immobilization. From week 5 onwards, they look to work their players in terms of low gravity rehab, perhaps doing some work walking or standing in the pool, and perhaps doing some basic isometric strengthening. They also highlight that this could be where blood flow restriction training could be really useful in order to get as much out of this rehab phase despite the players not being able to weight bear and exercise as much. And hey, if you want details about blood flow restriction training, we've got a link to the video we've created in the description below. And then from week 6 onwards is when we can start to increase our gym-based rehab. Therefore, we might be looking at heel raises and single leg activity, which we can progress through time, as well as making sure we focus on the quads, the glutes, and the hamstrings, because of course, these muscles will have deteriorated over the period of time the patient would have been inactive. So therefore, we're thinking about squats, lunges, deadlifts, all of these really important exercises. And then, as we said, it may well be that for these players, they're looking at week 9 at a minimum before they can think about return to sport drills and more higher level rehab like plyometrics. But again, this is with elite level athletes. So we may need to increase that period of time if we're thinking about non-elite patients too. So guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this video on syndesmosis injuries. If you have, please be sure to support us by smashing that like button, subscribe to the channel, and remember, there's loads more from us on our Instagram account @clinicalphysio and our website clinicalphysio.com. My name's Khalid. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon here on Clinical Physio.